In this video, we're going to understand more about how to customize charts once we've added them onto the Excel worksheet. To make any changes to my chart, I'll first need to select it, and I want to draw your attention to these three buttons on the side of the chart. These three buttons are going to give us access to almost all of the important functionality that was available within the ribbons in previous versions of Excel, such as 2007 and 2010. The plus button here will allow me to add and remove chart elements, such as, for example, axes, axis title, chart titles, data labels. You'll notice as I hover over these different options, I'm already getting the preview on the chart immediately. A very handy feature. Let's say, for example, I want to add a data table. To do that, I need to check the tick box next to data table, and the data table will be added. However, I can customize my data table further by using the arrow. The arrow will give me further options. Do I want to have with legend keys, no legend keys, and even more options? Let's try, for example, removing the legend keys. The legend keys are simply adding the color to my data table, so I can see which part of the table corresponds with which part of the chart. From here, I can also add axis titles. And I can choose to specify the primary horizontal axis or the primary vertical axis. And as I hover over the different options, observe that a preview is added directly to the chart. Let's go with the primary vertical axis title. The axis title has now been added to the chart. If I want to customize it, I will have to change the text that is within the text box. To do that, I can single click and use the backspace key or the delete key. Or I can double click to select one word, or triple click to select the entire text. And here I can add something like total sales. Almost anything that we want to add or remove from our chart is available within this plus sign, giving us access to all the chart elements: axes, titles, chart titles, data labels, error bars, grid lines, legends, trend lines. Let's move on next to our formatting button. Within the formatting button, we can apply various pre-assigned styles. Again, we can make use of the preview mode and see these different options automatically updated on the page. Like many of our formatting options, this is simply down to a matter of taste or achieving consistency with other documents you've already created. From within this menu, we can also change the color scheme of our charts. So here we have one of the defaults, a mixture of blues and oranges and greys, but we might want to go for a monochromatic sliding scale of color, such as varying blues or varying oranges or greys, etc. And within our monochromatic scales, we can go from darker to lighter and also lighter to darker. This might be appropriate if we have different colors assigned to different years. The next button is a particularly handy button, also introduced in Excel 2013. And this button is going to apply chart filters. Previously, if we wanted to effectively filter our charts, we had to change the data range that the chart was looking at. Now, with our filters, we can simply deselect or select different elements of our chart. For example, perhaps I want to again filter out the central region. I can remove my tick box, click Apply, and see that change applied to my chart. Similarly, I can do this with the X-axis values, my categories. I could, for example, remove Gill, Howard, and Jones. Press Apply, and see my chart updated. Within the filter area, I can also change the names, that is the names of my columns and the names of my X-axis. By default, I will have a descriptive naming convention for my rows, such as Central, East, West, and that is because Central, East, and West are the columns I have selected, or series items. I could simply remove that and apply. Now I simply have Series 2 and Series 3. Not particularly useful, so I'm going to leave that selected. Similarly with my columns, I can remove the columns naming and use the None option. Instead of the sales rep, I simply have a numerical value representing which sales rep. This type of feature may be useful for more statistical data or scientific data, where you're not so much interested in the category names as their numerical representation. Perhaps something like strongly agree to strongly disagree on a sliding scale. For the majority of business applications, we'll simply want to use the default naming conventions.